Hello, everyone. I wanted to do a little quick follow up video to last week's video. That video was about going to the doctor and being tested for my memory. At the end of the day, that day, I was really tired, and so I didn't describe very well what what the test components were like. I I'm not going to give a thorough explanation, but I do want to give just a little bit more in case you're curious about what the test is like. It has been a week, so I've forgotten a lot of details, uh, some of the details of it, but I'll go over what I do remember. Also, I did a little bit of Googling to see if I could read more about it to get more of a sense of what some of the different components we're testing. And I do have a few notes, so I'm going to look down from time to time so I don't miss any of the key points that I wanted to cover. Today, I have some notes in front of me. So, the first thing I wanted to mention is I did ask the evaluator if there was a name for the series of little tests that I was taking. And she did show me her brochure that she was working from, or it was a workbook, I guess, that she was working from. And it's called the WAIS-IV, WAIS dash 4, like the Roman numeral 4. And there are, from my Google search, I understand there are just a number of like key components that I assume everyone would get. And then there are some supplemental parts of the test that you may or may not get. I thought it was just a memory test, but it actually is much more than that. It can determine your IQ. It also it identifies learning disabilities, cognitive strengths and weaknesses, and your general abilities. And so there might be a number of reasons why this would be given. It wouldn't just be people concerned about dementia. The test covers four different areas. One is verbal comprehension, two, perceptual reasoning, three, working memory, and four, processing speed. There are 10 core components and five subtests that can be taken. So I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the components I remember taking. So one of the exercises was a typical one that if you've ever had a memory test, they give you where you draw a picture of a clock and you're supposed to put in the numbers around the clock, and they ask you to put the hands where it says a certain time of the day. And that's one that's just kind of a standard for most memory tests, and that was part of this test. Another was where I was asked to name all the animals that I could think of, and it was, I don't know, maybe about a 90 seconds. I really don't know how long it was, but it was timed. And so you just go through and name all the animals that you can think of. Next, I was given a letter from the alphabet, and I was asked to name all the words I could think of that started with that letter. One of the components is where she showed pictures of various items and asked you to name them. And that I think, I don't know how many of these were timed. I think many were timed, but I don't know if that one was or not. One of them was there was a coding exercise where there was I think it was the alphabet, may have been numbers. I don't remember which it was. It was either the alphabet across the sheet of paper with a symbol underneath each one, or it was the numbers 1 to 31. I don't recall, but somehow they correlate. Like the number 1 would be a certain symbol, the number 2 would be another symbol, the number 3 another. And so then below that, you have a piece of paper and you would match. So if the number was 8, you would look at whatever the symbol was under 8 and you'd write that down. And the next one might say 14 and you look for the symbol under that and write it down. And this was a time test. Next, there was an exercise where she gave you two different ideas or items and asked you to explain how they're similar. And the first example was she gave two pieces of fruit. And you would answer they're similar by they're both fruit. But it got a lot more complicated. Towards the end, it was more ideas about maybe emotions or uh, concepts such as like name the similarity between evil and good, which is, we think of those as opposites. So that took me a little bit. That was not actually one of the examples, but it was something similar to that, where it is something you normally think of as an opposite. So you would think of, how are those items similar? There was another part where you were told stories, or asked to remember the story as well as you can, repeat it back, and even using the same words that the examiner used if possible. She did the story once. I repeated back what I could recall of the story. Then she repeated the story. I repeated it back again. And then I think it was a third time she did for the first story. And then I would repeat it back again. Then she went on to a second story, and she, told me the story. And then I repeated all that I could. And I was anticipating there would be the same process where it would be told twice and then a third time, but that isn't what happened. It was, I believe, just once that she told the story that time. But then you go through a number of other exercises, and maybe a half an hour later, she would then ask, what can you remember of either of the stories? And I would repeat them at that point. There was a component of the testing where there was what's called picture placement, and there were 4 different simple line drawings on a piece of paper, and you were asked to draw them. But she took away the picture before you drew them. And when I knew it was a drawing piece of the test, I thought, I'm gonna ace this one, because I like to draw. I draw portraits and things, so I thought I would have no trouble with it, but I did. I had trouble with the remembering what the symbols looked like, and where they belonged on the paper. There were 6 symbols. I said symbols. It's more of small little pictures. One I think was similar to the shape of a house, and then there were other ones too. But she did show me again, and then she took the picture away, and then you try a second time and a third time. Then towards the very end, it may have been the last exercise, she asked me, if I recalled doing the drawings with the 6 different drawings on a piece of paper, and she wanted me to try again. And for me, I believe I did a lot better then than I did in any of the 3 times previous. I think I got most of the pictures correct, but we'll find out. I don't know if I did. There was one that I found to be the most difficult, and that was block design, where she showed a picture of a block, and you actually have blocks with different colors on different sides, and you try to place them together in a way that matches the picture that she showed. I struggled a bit with that. I worked through most of them, but the final example I wasn't able to do. I wasn't able to complete it. And so I'm just really curious about whether the average person should or shouldn't be able to complete. I don't know, because I do understand that part of the test is supposed to be complicated to the point that not everyone gets all components. And so I'm hoping that the fact that I didn't finish that one isn't going to be an indicator of a problem with my memory. There were different areas where I felt pretty confident that I did well in, and there were other areas that I feel pretty confident that I did not do very well in. This was just an explanation of some of the components, a very simple, quick explanation of some of the components of the evaluation that I had done. There were a lot more parts to it, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what it's like. After I meet with the doctor of psychology, I will then, a week later, be meeting with a neurologist, and he will pull all the pieces together. So it'll be the CT scan and the psychological testing, and then my history and what my concerns are, and pull it all together and let me know if I have memory concerns past what would be typical for my age. I do know too that even if I get results back positive from this, that doesn't mean that I can never get dementia. It would just mean that right now they're not seeing that. So it's just something to always keep in mind. And when I find out more, I will let you know. If you like this video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. You have a great day. Bye bye.